on the very day that Tesla revealed their prices in Europe. And then the day later that BYD revealed their prices, Volkswagen CEO made this comment. And he basically said, Chinese automakers are not a threat in Europe for this reason. Now, the interesting thing is this comes right after the CEO of BMW and the CEO of Stellantis started whining and moaning about the threat of China, saying that it's the end of the automotive industry in Europe. Well, not saying that, but alluding to that anyway. However, the Volkswagen Group CEO made what I think was a very pertinent, very logical, very sensible comment on why Chinese automakers are not actually a threat in Europe, at least not yet. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. Great to see you. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. Welcome to the new subscribers to the channel. Great to have you. Welcome back, everyone else. Volkswagen CEO has just come out and said, I think what I've been saying here on the channel for quite a while now. Until Chinese automakers price their cars fairly in Europe, and they're not, at least most of them aren't anyway, that includes BYD, then they're not a threat. Now, to give you an idea on what I'm talking about here, BYD is a brand new brand in Europe. Very few people know who BYD are in Europe. Now, yeah, maybe EV fans, but the general population haven't heard of BYD. And yet, BYD's price of its new seal is higher than that of the brand new Tesla Model 3. And we're looking at, within a couple of days, prices for both cars come out and the seal is more expensive. Now, the long-range version of the seal is about the same price, and the standard range single motor version is slightly more expensive than the Tesla Model 3. I don't think that makes sense. And that's probably why Volkswagen CEO made this point. Well, it's certainly one of the reasons, and he's right. The Chinese are not a threat for European car makers because their price doubles overseas. Now, does their price really double? Well, is the base model version of the seal, is it $22,500 in China? Not quite. It's about $27,000, but that's not the actual same model that they're selling. So really, like for like, exactly the same model, you're looking at it probably around 40% cheaper in China. So Volkswagen CEO is pretty much right. This applies to most automakers except for MG. MG is definitely pricing their cars at a more fair number than what BYD is in Europe. Now, we're not talking about Australia here, guys. So if you're in Australia, don't get all worked up and say, no, this isn't true. This is false, fake news. Because actually, you got to look at the prices in Europe. That's what this video is about, and that's what Volkswagen CEO is talking about. So far, Chinese car makers have not been entering car markets in Europe with what I think are fair prices. I feel like it's a bit of price gouging going on, but who knows? Maybe it's not the Chinese automakers themselves. Maybe it's the local European distributors that are putting on big premiums. Now, it's true that Chinese automakers can produce at around a 30% lower price than European automakers when it comes to electric cars. However, they can't actually sell them for that price in Europe. One of the reasons is they need to ship them a fairly long way, and there are some import duties in different countries. Pretty small ones, but there are some. Plus, here's the kicker. Chinese car makers have to spend a lot of money adapting their vehicles to European regulations, as well as building their sales networks. And of course, paying that extra premium to the local distributors in Europe. There's quite a few different fees here that the Chinese automakers have to pay that European car companies don't. The prices of Chinese cars offered in Europe, says carnewschina.com, are twice as expensive in many cases as those in China, said Volkswagen Group CEO Oliver Bloom. He said, therefore, Chinese car makers are not a threat for European companies. He may be right. In fact, if you look at the sales numbers through almost all of Europe, there's no Chinese car maker except for MG, who are perceived as being British, that is actually selling decent numbers of cars in Europe. Now, Oliver Bloom actually did fire some shots. He said in the past decade, Chinese automakers have learned how to build cars. But he said, we in Germany have know-how, a level of quality and a brand heritage. So we see ourselves well positioned, continued the CEO. We need to work hard on reducing costs, but we are confident that they can be reduced quickly. Based on Bloom's words, he clearly believes that the house is no longer on fire at the Volkswagen Group. That said, Volkswagen have slashed the prices of their electric cars in a number of countries, in particular in China, where they just reduced the price of the ID4 to $20,000 for the ID4. In other words, it's certainly selling at a discount to its Chinese competition in China. Now, keep in mind, there is one big problem that the Volkswagen Group have here. Their competition, companies like BYD, they pretty much only make EVs. They specialize in that product. However, the Volkswagen Group, only 7% of their global production are electric cars. 7%. Volkswagen Group have $185 billion in debt. Now, there are no Chinese automakers that have anywhere near that debt. And let's be blunt here. If a company like NIO went to the government and said, hey, we need a bailout like we got a few years ago, would the government give it to them? I'd say so. That's pretty well known that happens in China. So they have some advantages. Funding, probably pretty easy to get. And the other thing they have is they have no hangover, no legacy hangover, no factories producing internal combustion engines that need to be converted at the cost of billions of dollars to making EVs. Now, Volkswagen Group claim it have a solution to the lower cost of production that the Chinese automakers have. He's saying that's an advantage for them, but we have a solution for this. We're going to basically massively reduce our EV production costs. They said by 50% for their entry-level vehicles once their unified cell is developed. So what is this? Well, it's a battery which will have a one-cell design that can cover over 80% of the company's portfolio by 2030. Will that reduce their costs? Maybe at the battery level by 50%? That's possible. Keep in mind, this battery is being developed by Gotion High-Tech. Volkswagen own a 25% stake in Gotion High-Tech. And in May, Gotion said the unified cell plant will produce 10 gigawatt hours of ternary and 10 gigawatt hours of lithium iron phosphate or LFP cells starting this quarter. So that will be an advantage for Volkswagen. Once they're producing more electric cars with LFP cells, that will bring the price down. Car News China said this new cell will be part of the standard of the Volkswagen Scalable Systems Platform Architecture, or SSP. Basically, a single lower cost electric vehicle platform, which will be lighter and therefore have a lot lower costs. Kind of like a basically CTP or structural battery system, will be used in over 80% of the company's EV portfolio, says Volkswagen. Now, I don't know how this works because they've still got MEB, they've still got, of course, Xpeng's new platform they basically just licensed to use. They've still got, of course, their partnership with SAIC and, the parent company of MG to use their EV platform for Audis. So I'm not really sure what's going on at Volkswagen, but they have lots of plans, a little bit scattered all over the place, but I think that this will work, so we'll wait and see. Now, either way, the reality is here, that Volkswagen's CEO is right on one thing. The Chinese are definitely selling their cars at a much higher price in Europe. At some point in time, they'll do either one of two things: give up and leave, or cut the prices of their cars, make a loss like the competitors are in order to gain market share. The other question here is, though, will customers in Europe just change their mind on Chinese EVs? Because at this point in time, they don't appear to be all that interested. Will they change their mind once Chinese companies bring down the prices? They certainly could, but I think if Chinese EVs aren't around 20% lower, they're not going to sell that well. And it remains to be seen whether or not that will actually ever happen. Now, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and thank you for watching. Bye-bye.